I'm live. That's right, I'm live and I'm healthy. I guess I have a good immune system. Or maybe I'm just the luckiest person in America. Who knows? Anywho, things to talk about. As usual, there's so much to talk about. It's hard to pick a topic, but one that's been eating away at me for the past couple of days since the commemoration of the events that took place on 9/11/2001 is, have we forgotten? I mean, we're told constantly, are we not, that we should never forget. And we shouldn't. I mean, it was a bad day for America, to be sure. But what lessons have we learned from it? What was the ultimate result for Americans and for our freedoms moving forward? And there are things that we can look at. One example that we're seeing a lot in the news today, of course, is the mandatory vaccines. And anytime you hear the word mandatory, of course, you're not talking about freedom. And in fact, Biden himself said this is not about our freedom. So we know where they're coming from. But how did we get here? How did we get to a point in our nation's history where the government can just, anybody, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter who it is, can step up and say, we're going to mandate this. We're going to make you have to do it. And a vast number of Americans, and you've seen this as well as I have, go along with it. They're okay with it. They think it's right and proper, and it's what the government should do, and we should be happy about it. So how does one explain this? How does one, and maybe because I'm older and I grew up at a different time and age, and I've studied history my entire life. Since I've been able to read, history's been something I've loved to read about. So maybe there are those of us who know things that other Americans don't know. Or maybe we care about things that other Americans just don't care about. But there is a progressive state. There's a reason, a way that we got here. Now, we could go back to Richard Nixon and the war on drugs. And some of you may remember when I was running for Congress that I addressed the war on drugs, and I made it clear that I believed, and the statistics show, that the war on drugs has been a complete and abysmal failure. We have spent billions of dollars. We have violated the rights of millions of Americans, all in the name of the war on drugs. You think I'm wrong? Do you think you still have Fourth Amendment rights? The next time the police kick somebody's door in because some informant, trustworthy individual, bought drugs at a particular place, oh, but we got the wrong address. Sorry. Oh, that door and that we busted down and the furniture that we broke up, I'm sure you'll find a good sale somewhere to fix that. See ya. Really? You think we still have the same rights now that we had prior to the war on drugs? Now, I'm on a website. We are the Drug Policy Alliance, and this is drug war statistics. Now, I'm going to scroll through some of the stuff. There's a lot of stuff here, and if I went through everything that I wanted to cover, we'd be here for 5 or 6 hours, and I know you don't want that. So let me just hit on a couple things. Black people are 26% of those arrested, despite making up just 13.4% of the U.S. population. Well, now, some of you, and I know who you are, I can hear you right now, but Floyd, they're the ones breaking the law. Okay, sure. Technically speaking, they are. Do you know what most of the arrests, drug arrests, are actually for? The vast number of them are for simple possession. We're not talking about big crime drug dealers, moving in on another drug dealer and the war and the shooting and the murders and that guy's on my street corner and, I'm going to take over these street corners over here and blah, blah, blah. Simple possession. You get pulled over, maybe your taillight's knocked out. Cops, I need to search your car. Well, I don't consent to a search. Well, I can get the drug dog over here. All right, go ahead. Well, they find a couple of joints in your pocket. You're not high. You didn't smoke them yet. They're complete and total and intact joints. Do you still say joints? Can we still say that? Maybe I'm giving away my age here. Blunts, whatever. But because you had them in your possession, now you're going to be arrested, and you're probably going to go to jail. Now, for any liberals who see this, I know this one's just going to make your head explode. 3 strikes and you're out, remember? Saw the increase in black incarceration in this country exponentially. More blacks being arrested, more blacks being prosecuted and being incarcerated than any nation on the planet. You know who wrote the bill calling for 3 strikes and you're out? Think about it for a minute. I'm going to give you a few seconds. Jeopardy theme song, please. Dun, 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 dun. You ready? Joe Biden. That's right. Your hero, Mr. and Mrs. Liberal. Joe Biden not only wrote the 1993 Clinton crime bill, you can go on YouTube today and find videos of him from back then bragging about it. You know who used that crime bill to prosecute and incarcerate large numbers of black citizens? You ready? Kamala Harris, your female hero. Yeah. So the next time you start complaining about, well, it's unfair the way so many blacks in this country are incarcerated for minor offenses, maybe you ought to think about who actually wrote the laws and prosecuted those laws that put all those black people in jail. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, some simple possession, why are we wasting time on stuff like that? Seriously. But police departments do, because the more arrests they can say they made for drugs, the more money they get. I mean, guys, this isn't a secret. You can look this stuff up. Follow the money. Oh, you want a new MRAP? You want a new tank? You want something you can bust down the front wall of a house with? Well, you show us you're making an X number of drug arrests, and maybe we can get you one. Oh, moving on. Number of people currently incarcerated in the U.S., 2.3 million. 1 in 5 are incarcerated for a drug offense. Nonviolent drug offenses. Simple possession. The drug war has become a tool for mass community surveillance, with more people being surveilled in their communities than incarcerated. I mean, guys, this is how it starts. They don't just jump right in and say, we're going to do all this stuff. We're going to take away these rights. We're going to violate these rights. We're going to do this, 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 and this. It's gradual. They chip away at it. And you either don't notice it at all, or you figure, well, they're not going to go but so far with it. And my line in the sand is here, and they haven't gotten there yet, so I'm not going to worry about it. Let me see. There's something here I wanted to show you. It's about the money we've spent. Come on, I know it's here somewhere. All right, the drug war's financial impact. $293 million worth of equipment was transferred from the military to law enforcement through the 1033 program in 2019 alone. Military equipment. Are the police the military? Are they supposed to be the military? If they're the military, then what does that make us? $3.5 billion is the amount of money taxpayers will spend funding the Drug Enforcement Agency in 2021. $3.5 billion. $6,500 is how much money the Drug Enforcement Agency costs to run per minute. Per minute. $47 billion is estimated to be the amount that the U.S. government spends per year enforcing drug prohibition. $47 billion. Are we getting our money's worth, boys and girls? Huh? Has the use of drugs been curtailed? Do people not use drugs anymore? Look, I've just given you some numbers. There are more out there. And you can look this stuff up just as easily as I can. The war on drugs has not only failed, it's been a complete and total waste of money. And as a result, the police have been allowed, and even the Supreme Court in some cases have agreed to allow them to violate several of your constitutional rights, all in the name of going after drugs. Was it worth it? Was the violation of our rights, the continued violation of our rights, worth it? Has it stopped people from using drugs if they want to? Can people no longer get drugs? It's just this kind of insanity in the fact that people refuse to look at the statistics, refuse to look at the results. I know what the intentions are, but isn't that part of the problem in our country over the past couple, at least decades, is we don't look at results, we just look at the intentions. Well, it's supposed to be a good program. It's supposed to be helpful. Yeah, but has it been? Has it accomplished what it set out to? And has it been able to do it without violating our constitutional rights? I would submit that it has not. It's been a failure, and it has led to the abuse of more and more of our constitutional rights. If you want to disagree with me, that's fine. You explain to me how it's been successful. All right, so that's the war on drugs. That's one step in that direction. That goes back to the early 70s and Richard Nixon. Okay. What else has happened since 9/11, 2001, in the name of safety, in the name of protecting the nation, that has led to where we are now, that has led our government to think, well, we can just tell the people we're going to do whatever we want to do, and to hell with what they think. Anybody remember the Patriot Act? And let me think, who was the president when the Patriot Act was written? Who had the majority in Congress when the Patriot Act passed? Republicans. It was George Bush, Eric Cantor, and the Republicans. Remember? I remember. Patriot Act. I mean, how could you be against the Patriot Act? It has the word patriot in it. And we're all patriots, aren't we? Left, right, Democrat, Republican. Don't we all think that we're patriots? So who would be against the Patriot Act? Well, what does the Patriot Act allow the government to do? Well, number one, they can spy on any of us without warrant. And there have been many examples of this that have been shown, many that have been explained. The FBI does not need to go get a warrant. They can just, some agent can decide, hey, I think that guy that lives next to Floyd, he might be a potential terrorist. So we're going to start tapping his phones and checking his financials and see what he's been up to. Well, what might he have done? Well, what might I have done? Look at the list that came out from the Department of Homeland Security, and there's another joke. Another government bureaucracy. Why do we have the Department of Homeland Security? Because the FBI, CIA, NSA, and all the other alphabet agencies prior to 9/11, 2001 didn't do their freaking jobs. They didn't share information. Now, I don't know if you remember this. I remember this. Each agency, as the investigation would tell us later, had bits and pieces of information about the potential of the 9/11 attacks happening, but they wouldn't share it with each other. You know those cop shows you see on TV where there's a bank robbery and the local cops swoop in and they might catch one or two of the guys, but another 2 or 3 get away. And then the FBI comes in. All right, we're taking over this case. This is our jurisdiction. The hell it is. It's my city. Nope, federal, FBI, bank robbery, blah, blah, blah. And so they're butting heads with each other. We want the credit. We want to be able to tell America that we're the ones that made the arrest, that we're the ones that stopped it. In the meantime, none of them shared anything, and we had the 9/11 attacks. So how do we fix that? Government thinking. Let's create another bureaucracy. Huh? That's a great idea, isn't it? And have they done anything to make things better? All right, so let me highlight this so I can get back to it. And why is it not letting me highlight it? Duh. All right, I'm just going to read this from a website here. Access to personal records held by third parties. This is on a website. I'll give you the title in a minute. One of the most contrary provisions of the Patriot Act is where it allows federal authorities to have access to records of citizens in the hands of third parties. Remember Edward Snowden, NSA? He was a third party. He was a contractor. He had access to all kinds of secret information. He wasn't a government employee. He was a contracted employee. With the current use of computers in almost everything, the Patriot Act allows the Federal Bureau of Investigation to force any person, including bookstore, internet service providers, or universities, to have access to their customers' information. It gives federal authorities unchecked powers of accessing critical records of an individual, including medical histories, financial records, library usage, travel patterns, among other things, with files. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is not required to show a reasonable suspicion that the documents requested are connected to specific criminal activities being investigated. The judicial oversight for the unchecked powers provided by the Patriot Act, and this is likely to bring unprecedented breaching of the law. Now, that's just one thing. That's not all of them. And this, by the way, is from Majestic Grades, Ways Patriot Act Violates the Constitution. Okay? And I've already told you, the FBI, they don't need warrants. They don't have to go to a judge, present evidence. And the list the DHS came out with, let me get back to that. Department of Homeland Security. You are a potential terrorist if, A, you support the Second Amendment. B, you talk about things like limited government. C, you've talked about your religion or going to church. No, it's not me. D, you have been a member of the NRA or the Gun Owners of America or other similar organizations. You see where I'm going with this? This isn't, see, you think, and a lot of people thought when they started this stuff, it was about terrorists. It was about those Muslims over there in the Middle East, and they might come over here and do some bad stuff to us, so we have to be able to spy on them and see what they're up to. They're spying on you and me. And they don't even need a warrant to do it. You ever heard of probable cause? You ever heard of due process? I know these are crazy, archaic terms. Some people may not have ever heard of them. They probably don't even teach this stuff in school anymore. But due process says that if you think I might be a terrorist, that I've done something that makes me look like a terrorist, you have to go to a judge with evidence and tell him, I think Mr. Bayne might be a terrorist because, and here's the evidence, and the judge can or cannot issue a warrant to go ahead and tap my phone, spy on me, see what I'm doing, look at my financials. They don't have to do that. Due process, out the window. And you know, this has been since George Bush was in office. We've since had Obama. We've since had Trump. And we now have Biden. Have any of them talked about getting rid of it, changing it, abolishing it? Have you heard anybody in Congress, aside from maybe Tom Massey or Rand Paul, a handful of people, talking about abolishing it, talking about the abuses of the Constitution and your rights? So don't tell me the Republicans are going to save us. I know it's fun to beat up on Democrats, and they sure make it easy because they're a bunch of morons. But Republicans aren't doing you any favors. They haven't gotten rid of this stuff. And the last thing I'm going to address is the National Defense Authorization Act. Anybody familiar with that? NDAA? This was another thing Eric Cantor voted for when I was running against him. And I actually spoke at one of the Republican conventions in 2012 when I ran against him inside the party in the primary. And I spoke about the NDAA. And people like Rush Limbaugh and Bob Marshall here in Virginia and Glenn Beck and other prominent Republicans and conservatives were saying, hey, this NDAA thing is wrong. We can't have this. It's a violation of our constitutional rights because the federal government, once again, doesn't need a warrant, doesn't even need evidence. All they have to do is have a suspicion that you might be a potential terrorist or working with or talking with terrorists. And you can be arrested and incarcerated indefinitely. Look up the word indefinite. And you don't get to see a lawyer. You can't see your family. They don't have to bring you to trial on any specific time schedule. They can just keep you locked up as long as they want to. Now, does that sound like the United States of America, Bill of Rights, Constitution? And so if they can do these things and nobody's raised hell about it, I mean, some people have, but, you know, I've raised hell about it, but who the hell am I, right? I'm just some guy on his computer spouting off. Nobody gives a shit what I think. But let's go to, this is from the ACLU. Anybody remember them? Mr. and Mrs. Liberal, leftist, you love the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. Sometimes even they get it right. This is from December 31st, 2011. President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act into law today. The statute contains a sweeping worldwide indefinite detention provision. While President Obama issued a signing statement saying he had, quote unquote, serious reservations about the provisions, the statement only applies to how his administration would use the authorities granted by the NDAA and would not affect how the law is interpreted by subsequent administrations. The White House had threatened to veto an earlier version of the NDAA, but reversed course shortly before Congress voted on the final bill. So Obama didn't do anything about it. He didn't say, nope, not going to sign this. I'm not going to sign this into law. This is a violation of constitutional rights. No due process. No warrants are needed. Indefinite detention. That's absolutely abhorrent to the Constitution. But I'm going to sign it. Donald Trump didn't do anything about it. Joe Biden isn't doing anything about it. Eric Cantor and the Republicans in Congress, while Obama was president, they voted for it. So who are you going to turn to? Mr. and Mrs. Liberty lover? Mr. and Mrs. Constitution lover? Who are you going to turn to? We are in the mess we're in now, where a president can tell us you're going to get a shot, whether you want it or not. And half of America at least is going, you go, boy. Yeah, make them get that shot. Liberty be damned. Bill of Rights, who gives a shit? Constitution, toilet paper. That's why we're here. And neither party has done a damn thing about it. Like I said, it's the same handful of guys all the time, and you know who they are. Rand Paul will speak up, Tom Massey will speak up, and there are a couple of others in there. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are. And people are saying, well, the mandate thing, that'll get to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will shoot it down. Really? Number one, how long is that going to take? Number two, are you confident that the Supreme Court is going to make the right decision? Seriously? You're going to wait for them to decide? All right. So, again, there's so much I could talk about. There's so much more to talk about. And I haven't even touched the surface. I've barely touched the surface of these three issues: the war on drugs and the effect it's had on us, the NDAA and the effect it has had on us, the Patriot Act and the effect it has had on us. And now we're talking about vaccine mandates. The same people who say my body, my choice when I want to kill my baby are now telling you, no, your body, you don't have a choice. We're going to make you get that shot. Welcome to America.